Hello there, and welcome to the Seafood Business Accelerator. This is another module of this SBA online resources, and today we're going to talk about financing. I'm Debra Halbach, your host, and with me today is Bernard Gilbert from FCC. So today, Bernard is joining us from Surrey. Are you in Surrey today?
Yeah, I work out of the Surrey office, but I reside in the Musqueam-Squamish-Tsleil-Waututh region and reside in Burnaby.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks, Bernard. FCC has the only 100% Indigenous lending team focused on agriculture and food. That's huge. And Bernard and I first met at the Seafood Festival in Comox a few years ago, and I was absolutely thrilled when Bernard said that there was an interest in seafood as well, which was just awesome. And we've been in touch ever since. In fact, Bernard has spoken at some of our webinars for this Seafood Business Accelerator. As always, the goal of the SBA is to help you or fishers and farmers capture more value for their harvest. And the online resources, what we're doing here is we're helping people utilize the tool that we have, the Innovation Plan tool, which prepares a roadmap for your project or your business. So we'll touch on different elements of the Innovation Plan when we're talking today with Bernard. So again, our topic today is financing and business planning. And I'm thrilled to be here with Bernard. Bernard, how about you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how financing and business planning contribute to the success of small-scale fishers and the farmers?
Sure. Thank you for your time, Deborah. I know that this is much needed work within the aquaculture space. Good day, everyone. My name is Bernard Gilbert. I am Shuswap from the Sewet'en region. I'm from the Williams Lake First Nation. My role with FCC, Farm Credit Canada, is a Senior Relationship Manager of Indigenous Financing. I've been in this role just going on 3 years, and when I first started in this role, I knew that aquaculture was going to get brought up. So I wanted to understand what the eligibility was in terms of aquaculture and fishing, because I have some historical experience with commercial fisheries. I used to help with my brothers just outside of Peters Road, Chilliwack, BC, and I also did traditional dip net fishing at Fraser River in Williams Lake. So fishing is through near and dear with me. And I asked for people when I first started, I got 4 different answers. But now we have a better line in the sand in terms of eligibility. And for the second part of that question, the importance of financing and business planning. One thing that I've noticed is that there is a bit of a challenge with, now I'm really going to date myself, the field of dreams approach. If we build it, they will come. It's not a good model. We need to start with a blueprint, and that blueprint will help with success, not only for yourself, but your team as well.
Wow. Well put.
Well, there's that's one thing I appreciate about business plans. I know that they're very, very daunting because you pick it up and it's almost like a phone book. Oh, wow. Another thing that I'm doing myself. They don't have phone books anymore. Anyways, I digress. So a business plan can be anywhere from 10 pages to 100 pages. And one thing I like that is used within the SBA is the business canvas. That can help drive to being your outline for an overall comprehensive business plan. It's essentially a snapshot of a business plan. So if you need to make changes, lean towards the canvas before you start diving into the business plan.
Excellent, Bernard. Yeah, and so the for those of you that are new to the SBA, the Innovation Plan Canvas template is available in the online resources. So and it's fillable, so you can put it in there, put your information in there, and exactly what Bernard is saying. It's a template or a roadmap, and you can start putting your ideas in there. And then if you are going to be building out a larger business plan for a variety of reasons, you can use that. We've also used it, and this is important for financing too, I think. It also can be used to show somebody like Bernard at a conference or a showcase, this is my plan, right? And he can look at it, and in less than a minute, he has a sense of what you've looked at, the homework that you've already done, and where you're going. So people have used it quite successfully in that way as well.
Yeah, just to add on to that, because I know when it comes to developing a blueprint, there are a few things that are usually overlooked, that the actual projections tend to be unrealistic. So put a little bit of time and effort into keeping the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, what that could look like, and be very precise within your actual business model and make sure that actual risks and challenges could happen. That way you can develop a mitigation strategy for those.
Okay, great. So often people come to us, and the first thing they say to us, and I think this speaks to what Bernard just mentioned, that the first thing they say is, "I need money." Right? Right away. So, the only way I'm going to do my project or my business is if I get money. And yes, everybody needs money, or most people need money. But have you considered all the angles, all the things that are involved with starting your business before you do the ask for money? So that may be a good place to start, Bernard, or to continue on here, is what are the sort of things that people should be looking at before they come and talk to an organization like FCC? And actually, when I say that, could you also explain what FCC stands for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. FCC is Farm Credit Canada. So we're an entity that's been operational for 60 years. Our bread and butter has been focused on agriculture, primarily funding. And we knew that the term agriculture has been expanding into other areas, other sectors. And this is where aquaculture and fishing is still considered new. So we're helping develop policies as we go. So it's what might not have been eligible 2 years ago would be considered eligible now. A couple of years ago, it was a quick yes or a quick no. Now it's a different story. So it just goes to show how much change has happened within FCC's history and CFEs in comparison to like other FIs and IFIs. But in terms of accessing funding, where FCC sits is that we do not offer grants, but we will help with financing, and we will work with startups as well as primarily pre-existing entities. But in terms of accessing earlier, there's certain IFIs that help with initial startups that have not only grants, but also non-repayable components.
So
That's
just going to get you to
Mhm.
stop there for a second. What is an IFI?
That's a great question. Apologies. Like I know that when it comes to industry talk, I'm guilty of that. So FI is financial institution, IFIs is Indigenous financial institutions.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so traditional Indigenous financial institutions such as Community Futures, NEDC, Haida Community Futures, there's specific community futures for each region. They'll help with initial startup to a certain threshold. I'm not too sure what that threshold is, but definitely reach out to your local NEDC, Community Futures, Caribou, Community Futures, Development Corp, and Kamloops, and they'll be able to
Yeah.
help you with that. And that will get the conversation started within your project. And once you start growing or need extra capital, this is where can lean into business EDC or EDC if planning to ship. And then FCC is primarily focused on Canada. So there's a few options out there. It's just a matter of just wondering where you're at and developing your business plan. That way, once you do have the conversations with the proper people, it'll be smoother.
Yeah, so as Bernard is saying, there's a whole tier of I don't know, tier ladder, I guess, of funding available or financing available to entrepreneurs. And the place to start is, with a let's say a startup, you'd want to talk to Community Futures or Newtownth Economic Development Corp, right? That's NEDC. And so that would be the place to start. So the groups that are people that are involved in the Seafood Business Accelerator, we can provide some of that information to you. But all of these organizations have websites and information sessions as well. In our grant writing webinar, we talked to Desiree, and she was talking about make sure you're signed up for all the newsletters that are available. So there's a variety of newsletters that are available that talk about, who's having information sessions, where you go to get support and help, and that's how you would get it. I think there's a what is it called? Indigenous Pathways. I think there's a provincial program and there's also a federal program,
Mhm.
and they provide a lot of information about where to go and how to get financing. But Bernard, when you go, doesn't matter where you go, these organizations are going to be looking for similar information, right? They're going to want to know, have you done your market research? Do you know about the regulations and permitting and that kind of thing that's required when you're starting your business? Do you have a business system in place? Like, do you have a way of tracking your expenses and your income? Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit and how that ties into the innovation plan canvas or business plan canvas that we use?
Sorry, could you rephrase that? Like it seemed like two questions in one.
Well, you've already talked about this, how the innovation plan that we're using with the Seafood Business
Yep.
Accelerator is tailored to a seafood or aquaculture business, right? It's tailored to that as opposed to a generic business plan canvas.
Mhm.
Right? But either one of those documents gets the entrepreneur to start thinking about what they need to know before they approach somebody for financing, or if they're writing for a grant, or they're approaching an accountant to look after their business. So when somebody is planning on going to Community Futures and say, I need a loan, what will Community Futures be looking for?
Oh, okay. Now I understand. So, what Indigenous financial institutions, as well as myself, as well as Pacific Integrated Commercial Fishing Initiative, like other provincial entities, we want to see where the headspace is at for the person applying for funding or debt is with a business plan. So the business canvas model is a really good start point because it will help outline where you're going to be adding value and how you're going to add value. It will help with a lot of the core strategic planning components that you'll have to take into consideration. And from there, after you make all the necessary changes that you feel, is the last thing you want to do is dive right into a business plan. And it is a very time consuming document where one change could impact other sections. And
Yeah.
it could be a lot of back and forth with a very technical document, but start with a model, refine it, and then you could delve into the business plan because the business plan will help drive direction.
Mhm.
So with the business plan in place, it will have embedded projections. There's going to be some financial components there, not necessarily a financial statement, but projections on what the sales are going to look like. And I know I can only speak from an FCC perspective, but there's three key documents that we will be looking at: business plan,
Yeah.
uh, financial statements.
Yeah.
Those would be pro forma, so you would have to mock them up, and sales projections. Then from there, we'll be able to have a conversation and ask questions back and forth, just for clarification.
Right, right. And you talked about being real, in the beginning of our conversation, and that's where this planning ahead demonstrates to someone like Bernard that you've actually looked at it and you're being real. So what yeah, I remember phone books, but I mean, I'm also going to date myself here too. I mean, I've been at this for a long, long time. And I often people will come and say, well, I know that my product is, really good. Let's say it's, smoked fish and it's fantastic. And I know it's good because members of my family all really, really like it. So therefore I think I can sell it for, $20 a package and everybody's going to get it. And these are what my financial projections are. That's not good enough. If you're looking for branching out into the larger market and securing financing for it, you need to actually know with some background that you are going to approach the sales that you say that you think you're going to get. You need to know that there's a market. You need to know that it's going to be able to be distributed, that it's going to stay, it's not going to spoil, and so on and so forth. So by doing your homework, sounds kind of, anyhow, that's the word that I'm using. By doing your homework, you can say with some assurance that that I have a shelf life of 6 months and I can get this product to, let's say Penticton, and it's going to stay safe and that people are going to pay this much. And I know that because I've done my market research and I know what other my competitors are doing and how much they're charging for their product. And then at the same time as well, while you're doing all that homework, you're also able to say, it's going to cost me this much in labor, it's going to cost me this much in materials, it's going to cost me this much for distribution. And you can go to a financer and with some assurance that yes, you've actually provided a realistic outlook of what you're going to be able to do. And we might have wanted to cover this first, but so the big question is, well, why does Bernard want to know all this? Like, why does he want to know that that I've done my homework and that I'm going to do what I said I was going to do? Well, that's because Bernard and anybody else who's lending you money wants to be paid back. So you have to pay back that money. And this may be a good point to talk about the difference between financing and grants, if you wouldn't mind, Bernard, to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the difference between grants and financing, I know that there's a lot of entities that offer grants. There's some Indigenous financial institutions that offer a combination of grants as well as term debt loans. That way it could be a one-stop shop. I am open to referring to a lot of those IFIs, like if they cannot fit within what we can offer. So grants are either non-repayable or, well, actually, a majority of the IFIs, from my understanding, have a non-repayable component. Now, I can't speak to it. There's certain percentages where the individual doesn't have to pay it back. So that's very attractive for startups. With financing, we will have a look at the entire package that would be given to us from the fishermen or the commercial fishery enterprise, and we'll review all the documentation and we'll create a tailor-made solution based on what it is that the fisherman requires for senior debt financing. So financing is very different. It looks at multiple considerations other than just your credit score. Because when people think about financing, it's like, oh, my credit history is bad. It's like, I know that usually tends to stop conversations as soon as credit is brought up, but that's not the case. We'll look at where the headspace is at within the business plan. If there's a deal there, like in terms of being able to repay and recoup because the numbers are realistic, and we'll be able to continue that conversation beyond just the credit score. So there's multiple factors that go into it.
Okay, that's good. Now you've got me looking a little bit confused. You talked about that when the fisherman requires financing, that's not something that FCC would finance, though.
That's where the eligibility, I know earlier alluded to drawing a line in the sand. So
Right,
it
right.
would be, let's say a fisherman is looking to start up and requires a fishing vessel. Okay, well, okay, two steps back. So eligibility with an FCC, anything shoreside, which includes processing plants, equipment, would be eligible.
Okay. Okay.
In the ocean water, wild is not eligible. However, anything farmed in the ocean water would be eligible.
Okay. Okay.
And any fishing vessel with a commercial component to it would be eligible.
Oh, okay. Like a commercial processing component.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. And then NFA. So both of us with the acronyms is crazy, but so the Native Fishing Association finances boats, right? As well as some processing as well. So shoreline stuff. So, I mean, I think there are a lot of opportunities, and one thing that's really positive on the Indigenous side is that businesses can receive some grants for their businesses, which is pretty much unheard of in the non-Indigenous space. And as Bernard mentioned, there's often a forgivable portion of the financing. So that means that I'm pretty sure that you have to achieve certain aspects of what your plan was in order to be forgiven. But a certain percentage you don't have to pay back, and then the rest you have to pay back, and that will be according to the terms of the agreement that you have, right? So all of that is good, saying that yes, there's opportunities, and the opportunities will be even more available if you have a plan, right? So if you have a plan, I think walking into Community Futures and you have your innovation plan is going to, do fantastic. It's really going to elevate you in terms of your ability to get help. And it's not always financing that you need help. Like sometimes these service providers will network you with somebody else that will help you some more. So that part is great. So we've talked a lot about the importance of planning, the sorts of things that you need to know when you're asking for financing or looking, even when you're looking at a grant, right? I mean, bottom line, you always have to report afterwards, right? So if you get a grant or you receive financing, the organization that you're working with is going to want to see that you're making progress, and that they're probably, I would imagine that you have reporting requirements when you have with your clients, and I would think Community Futures would as well. So you have to report on what you've done, and so if you have a plan, then you have something to answer, right? So that's a really good thing too. So I think this would be a good time to talk about some examples of businesses or entrepreneurs that have moved forward. We can talk in generalities or name a few specifics. I don't know if you've heard of a company called Fleur Smokery. It's Kelly. I can't remember her husband's name now, but they're working out of Dock Plus, the shared processing facility in Port Alberni, and they have obviously a smokery, and they started out with funding from Community Futures. So that goes back quite a few years ago, but at the time, Kelly said, we talked to her last year actually, and she said that she was totally on her own. She didn't know who to talk to, and she had to do this business plan all on her own. And when she heard what we were doing, it was like, wow, that's fantastic if you have a resource like that to help you. How about you, Bernard? Do you have some examples that you can think of?
Yeah. I'll just mention which sector they're in. I know I have a couple of customers in my books. One is Indigenous craft soda production company, doing a lot of great work in that space. Another one is Indigenous co-op fish production, where they do value add. And also have a customer that is a rancher as well. So
Right, right.
very broad, very diverse portfolio, which is great because I know that in comparison to my colleagues in the prairies, it's either farming or it's going to be involving animal of sorts. But
Yes.
within BC, it's broad, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. So
Yeah.
conversations are always different.
Yeah, and we had a little discussion before we started, and we were talking about the importance of relationship building, and how that puts an entrepreneur in a good place. when they approach a potential financer or another service provider. You want to, give some examples of that too, how important the relationship building is.
Yeah. So the core of Indigenous relationships is time. So showing up is half the battle, but being patient. So I'm quite well aware that our people are busy. Our people feel siloed. So by sharing information like this, as you alluded to just a moment ago, it's fantastic that we have these opportunities for our people now, because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, different story. So by being patient and being patient is one thing, but actually showing up and just listening, it does wonders, because that's real relationships might not come to fruition right away. Some people need open up, some take a little longer. A lot of our people have been burnt, so it's natural for people to open up.
Yeah, that's so true. In fact, I had a conversation earlier today just about that, about the aspect of trust. That's a really good way to approach it as a new person moving into this, or as a business wanting to grow, is talking to other people who are in the business and find out who they've worked with, and who has been trustworthy and who is not, and sharing that kind of information. And I think one of the things is it's actually can be cross sector. Like you could have somebody who's involved in tourism, because everybody goes to the same financiers, right? So you could have somebody who's in tourism and I'm in seafood, but who were you working with at this bank or this financer or community futures, and then move forward that way, informed. Another thing too is there has been a lot of bad dealings, I guess, or unfortunate dealings, over time. And there's a lot of fear in our work. When you're looking at value added processing, you have to work with the food safety regulators. And even if you're on reserve, you need to work with the food safety regulators. But I was really actually kind of taken aback when I was talking to the environmental health officers for First Nations Health Authority. Their approach is we're here to help, so we're here to help. So come to us and we're going to, we're going to help as opposed to hinder. Maybe it's not, maybe it doesn't always happen that way, but if that's what's coming from the top, that's very optimistic, so it's a good start for sure. And in fact, who was it we were talking to today? Well, somebody was talking about people want Indigenous openings at their events. And often what happens is the event is all planned and then it's the last minute, oh yeah, right, we have to get somebody to open our event. And it's terrible to get invited at the end, as opposed to being invited at the beginning and being part of the event or whatever is happening. And it's the same thing, believe it or not, with like food inspection, as weird as that might sound. It's much easier if they're involved at the beginning than if they come at the end and have to say everything, that was done was wrong. Right. So I guess the moral of that story is involve people in the beginning of your journey and they'll be your champions, till the end. Well, not till the end, but they'll continue to be your champions. And I can say that as being part of this business accelerator project, I have people that I know from 20 years ago that I was involved in an accelerator that they were part of, and I'm their biggest champion. I buy their products, I show off when they do well. And so, yeah, you want to develop relationships, and at the beginning, those people will be there for you. So I think we've covered a fair bit here, Bernard. Do you have anything you wanted to add to our conversation?
Appreciate your time today, Deborah. I know that when it comes to business planning, there's always a question of securing financing. So there's a few things that I like to recommend to people is that everyone wants a Lamborghini, but start out with a Toyota Corolla. Start small and scale later. And the credit score is not the be all end all. By developing your business canvas model, which will ladder into the business plan, it will give you a firm understanding of your numbers. I know that earlier we were chatting about what the costs. It's like is if you know your costs within 1 unit of production, you're ahead of the game. Is within 1 unit, you'll understand what the variable costs are, what the fixed costs are, and that will help any analyst or officer looking at your loan. It'll give them a sense of reassurance. And I know another thing that we chatted about earlier is networking. So attending events, there's a lot of free events out there, a lot of virtual events. So you'll be able to hear from keynote speakers. You'll be able to introduce yourself to a lot of professionals within the industry. And one thing I appreciate about what the SBA program is doing is instilling confidence. So with situations like that, you'll be confident to reach out to some people offline, because at the end of the day, the keynote speakers are just like people like you and I. They want to help. So keep that in mind, is that we're here to help.
That's awesome, Bernard. That's a beautiful way to finish our conversation today. Thank you very, very much. And I look forward to seeing you sometime soon in the flesh. Bye, everyone. Thanks a lot.